Hello and welcome to Virtual Coffee. This is the Lunch and Learn edition, but it's breakfast time for me. So breakfast and learn it is. Our mission is to be a welcoming tech community that allows room for growth and mentorship at all levels and to create meaningful opportunities for learning, leadership, and contribution for everyone. If you want to find out more about us, learn about what we do, when our events are, you can check out our site, virtualcoffee.io. And today we are very, very excited to have some of our members who just participated in the Collab Lab cohort here to share what they've learned and what that experience was like. If you want to know a little bit about Collab Lab, I'll throw some links in the chat in a minute, but they are a group that emphasizes collaborative project practice, a place to work alongside others in a remote setting, and also provides mentorship. They have a cohort for 2022 coming up. The next one is April 3rd, and they will have applications from March 13th to the 19th, and they will be notifying future participants the following week. So definitely check out Collab Lab. And thank you all so much for being here. We have Ayu, Andrea, Jennifer, and Fatima. And so I'm gonna hand it over to them. They'll do intros a little bit later on, but thank you all so much for sharing your experience with us.
All right, so I'm going to kick things off by thanking everyone here again for coming. I think all of us are pretty excited to share all the great experiences that we had as part of the Collab Lab. It's a really great program. Yeah, so as she mentioned before, it's more focused on oh, I can't, all right, because this isn't on my screen. Next slide, please. More focused on, I use controlling the slides. More focused on collaboration than it is on coding, although some coding and React experience is required to get in. The four of us from Virtual Coffee who participated in the fall are me, Andrea Martz, Ayu, Fatima, and Jennifer. Next slide, please. Ooh, this is challenging. I've got all our pictures on top. Let me move this. Okay, so the Collab Lab, just quickly go through what it is. We're going to try to get through these slides quickly so that we can get to actually talking about our experiences. So there's two founders, Andrew Hedges and Stacy Taylor. They wanted to create a program where entry-level developers could have a collaborative group project experience before they get their first job. It's a place to work alongside your peers in a fully remote setting. You get the opportunity to learn from experienced developers, and it is volunteer run by the mentors and the people who run the program, and it's free for all participants. So they really are making it accessible. Next slide, please. So their mission is to increase access to web development jobs for early career developers, in particular people in underrepresented groups in tech, by providing experiential skills training in software team collaboration and career management. One thing I forgot to mention back on the intro slide is that the four of us are from 3 different countries. So it truly is an international group. They want it to be that way. Diversity is like one of their big things. Diversity in all different ways that you can be diverse. So Fatima is from Nigeria. Ayu is in the Netherlands. Jennifer and I are in the US. She's in Tennessee. I'm in Minnesota. So just wanted to be sure to mention that. And we're going to go to the next slide, and Jennifer will be presenting next.
Thanks, Andrea. That was a really good intro because this slide actually contains a really good breakdown of the participants. So since August 2019, the participants have included 112 developers, over 40 mentors, and all of whom are coming from 18 different countries on 4 different continents. So it's a really, really good representation. So when you go to, say, interviews and they talk about distributed teams, this truly, you will be working on a distributed team, which is fantastic. And the chart gives you a further breakdown here in terms of the diversity for women, post-secondary degree holders, LGBTQ, bootcamp grads, and people with different disabilities, along with some different ethnic breakdowns here. So all of this is available on the Collab Lab site if anyone is interested in getting more information. And moving on, Collab Lab, the project, you would be working on a mobile first app. The tech stack is React and Firebase. It spans about 40 hours. So the breakdown is approximately 5 hours per week over 8 weeks. And the teams are composed of 4 developers. So in terms of the team, it would be you and then 3 other developers from different areas of the world, along with, I believe, most of the mentors. I think that there were 3 mentors on our team at any point in time. And what Collab Lab is looking for in their team members is basic knowledge in React and or comfortable with JavaScript. And I think it would be fair to say very comfortable with JavaScript, because essentially you're working with JavaScript the entire time. The commitment is 5 hours per week over the course of 8 weeks. And in terms of commitment, you really do have to be committed to being a part of a team. So it is a collaborative effort, which is in the name Collab Lab. But the focus is on working collaboratively and really bringing those teamwork skills up to speed so that when you do go to your first job, you are ready and willing to just dive in on a team. And I would say that is primarily the focus of Collab Lab. And I'm going to go ahead and pass this off now to Ayu.
Oh, okay. So I had to find the unmute button. Thank you, Jennifer. So how does this program work? So we're working in an agile Scrum methodology. We're working with agile, so it's like sprints and retrospective and things like that. That is wide use in the company nowadays. And every week we'll have 2 issues, and 2 developers will be assigned for each issues. Oh, sorry. And we will do a sync and async communication, to work on the issues. We can set up the time and do pair programming. And we can also utilize the Slack and the GitHub for the sync communication. We will have 1 hour weekly meeting, typically on the weekends, and 1 hour mentors open office, and it depends on the availability of the mentor of the week. And why would you want to apply? Because you can have that collaboration experience in the agile environment. You can experience that teamwork and then pair programming and also remote communication. And you also have opportunity to learn more about frameworks and libraries like React and Firebase. And I don't know if finally your team decided to use CSS frameworks to style the app. And you will work closely with Git and GitHub so that hopefully at the end of this program that you can be much more comfortable in with the workflow of Git and GitHub. And you would also learn about how to do code review. And once you're in the Collab Lab, you will get that supportive community for lifetime, just like here in the virtual coffee. So that's a great benefit of applying and be in the Collab Lab. Also, if you opt in, this is an optional, but you can get this bonus after you finish with the 8 weeks of the Collab Lab, and you will get the Career Lab. You can opt in the 2 weeks of Career Lab, just like the Collab Lab. You can have, you have to commit with 5 hours per week, and you will be paired with mentors to do behavioral mock interview, technical mock interview, and LinkedIn review. How does it do? It's like the first week you will prepare the behavioral interview Q&A that is already prepared by the Collab Lab, also the technical interview Q&A and take-home assignment. And within the first week, you also reach out to the mentors to get that appointment for the mock interviews. And also you will need to update your LinkedIn. There would be a guidance for that. And at the end, a mentor will review your LinkedIn profile, and they will, give you suggestions on how to make your LinkedIn profile is more attractive to the recruiters. So as Becca also mentioned at the beginning, that the next cohort will kick off on April 3rd, 2022. And the application will be open on March 13 until 19. And also, the Collab Lab would love to expand this program. So this program can reach more and more early career developers, so many people can learn how to collaborate. And because we want to reach more and more people, we also need more and more mentors for the cohorts. So if you want to give back to your community, or if you like to teach, you love to help people, you can anytime apply to become a mentor in this link that we will share later. And for more info about the Collab Lab and all, you can visit the websites and also follow their Twitter and the @_collab_lab, so you won't miss a thing. And so the next, we will each of us share our experiences, and then we will answer your questions later. Maybe we can start with Fatima. Is Fatima around?
It looks like she dropped off the call.
Oh, okay. So Andrea, can you start then with the experience sharing?
Sure. I have a lot to say, and I can't say it all right now because my time slot isn't long enough. But I do encourage people to reach out to any of us. I know, well, I can encourage you to reach out to me. I think they would like it too. But if you have any other questions through virtual coffee or through, I think there's going to be some contact links for us shared, maybe on YouTube. I'm not sure what that's going to look like, but definitely if you can find me, reach out to me if you have questions. It's a great program. I don't know where to start. Yeah, it's there's just so many areas to learn from. The remote communication can be a challenge. By the way, I found the most value in it when things didn't go as I thought they would, or when things were challenging, because that's where you learn the most, right? So remote communication, I've done that before. But when, sometimes you find that there are cultural differences and that people, and it's in writing, so there's no tone of voice. And wow, sometimes there can be real misunderstandings. And so that was a good reminder. And then there's, let's see, we had some unexpected challenges. There was one time when things were taking a lot longer than 5 hours, just because, actually that was the first week, because they had everything prepared to do Firebase version 8. And like within 3 days before we started, Firebase had moved to version 9, and there were some things that weren't going to work. They just weren't compatible. And so we were all scrambling to figure out. They're really good. They're so supportive. I can't say enough about that. They really don't want it to go beyond 5 hours a week, unless you want it to, if you happen to have the time. But some people have a full-time job and they're doing this, so they have a plan for that. The mentors can step in and help you to expedite your process, even if it isn't an issue like that, even if it's just something you can't figure out in a reasonable time. They're really supportive and available. let's see. So I think this was touched on briefly earlier, but we got to go through the whole process of submitting a PR. We would review each other's code, like the two people working on one issue would review the PR submitted by the other two people on the team and vice versa. But then it also had to go through a mentor before we pushed, so that we wouldn't be inadvertently causing problems for a future week when we had another issue. But we got the experience of reviewing each other's and what you're supposed to review for and what you just let go, and how to give your comments about the review. Everything was always very positive. In the retros that we did every 2 weeks, retrospectives, you know, there was time and a place to like say all the positive things that happened and then say the things that like, hey, maybe we could do this differently the next time around. So I just found the communication overall and the support to be just really positive and helpful. And that career lab actually was one of the most helpful things that happened in the 2 weeks after, the optional bonus that Ayu was talking about. I felt like my LinkedIn was already in pretty good shape, and I still feel like it is. I haven't had a chance to make some of the changes that they suggested, but man, they had these videos and you go through them and it's like bullet points, but it was bullet points you could immediately understand. Just the presenter was awesome. She would go through, and they used actually videos, not most things were live presenters, but this was this was a set of videos because I think they just didn't find anybody who could do it better. So they just had her videos recorded. But it was like bullet points, do this, not that. And then she would show examples. This person is doing it. Look at what this looks like. This person isn't. Look at what this looks like. There was no wasted time. You get it. She moves on to the next thing. It was packed full of incredible information. I was really impressed. I was surprised. I almost didn't watch those videos because I was like, yeah, I think it's in a pretty good place. I could go on and on. I have lots of great things to say about it, but it's probably time for Jennifer to share her experiences.
Okay, thanks, Andrea. I agree. I thought Career Lab was fantastic. But I'm going to say going into Collab Lab, I had worked on teams in my boot camp, and I had some idea of what went on in a workplace environment just through reading and talking to a bunch of different people during networking. But wow, yeah, no, I didn't know what went on. I started out Collab Lab and they said, okay, we're working in an agile sprint environment. I thought, oh, okay, I know what that is. And no, they are super, super structured. And I found out from the person who actually started Collab Lab, Andrew Hedges, that it's very much, the structure of it is very much based on the work environment at Zapier. And so it is, we worked in weekly sprints. And so we would pick out our tickets or issues, which were very, very organized, very structured, so that you knew what the user story was, you had the acceptance criteria, you and your partner could grab a ticket. And again, it's like it would simulate any workplace environment using this type of methodology. You work throughout the week. You have a 1 hour office hour with a mentor who I'm not really sure how they organize who's going to do the office hours, but we just hit the jackpot and had awesome, awesome mentors. I love my mentors. I still talk to them. And so you have your office hours. If you have any issues that come up, whether it's regarding something going on with Collab Lab, whether it's questions about what happens to get a job, what happens if when you're in a job and you have issues, they answered all of these questions. They were so open and very, very, very helpful. Toward the end of the sprint, it was, we had 11th hour issues all the time, and our mentors were great about that. Our teams, we worked asynchronously and synchronously using whatever Slack, and sometimes we actually emailed on occasion, which was not really, that was discouraged, but in some cases it was necessary just because some people are having connection issues. But toward the end of the sprint, we would finish up our project or our issue. We would do our demos. We would have peer reviews. We would do a little retro at the end to kind of go over things and say, hey, how can we do this better? We got really great experience with pull requests. They have a really nice pull request template that you complete, and it gives you a really good idea of what on earth goes into a pull request, because I thought, oh, I just write down what I did and, throw a screenshot in there and it's all good. No, 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 no. that wasn't, you really do need to go through it. And it was just really good to get an idea of what it actually looks like when you are working and what the expectations are. And so if nothing else, I thought Collab Lab was fabulous just for giving us some idea of the structure within a work environment, giving us some kind of idea of templating, what it looks like to actually see a nice ticket or issue and what a decent pull request looks like. And again, that collaboration, I just can't stress enough. I lucked out, had a great team, had amazing mentors, fabulous communication all around. Our office hours would go over sometimes because there was just so much communication going on. So every team has a different experience. I hit the lottery jackpot, just won the $1 million. I can't say enough about it. I just loved it. So that's my story. I did do Career Lab. My experience with Career Lab was a lot like Andrea's, except my LinkedIn was a dumpster fire. Did find that out, but I aced my behavioral and technical interviews, so I felt pretty good about that. So I'm going to pass it off to Ayu.
Thanks. So pretty much it's almost the same, but only like, because I'm in a different team, I'm in a European and African team. We have like, English is not our native language, right? So communication, we really learn a lot about communication through sync and also asynchronous. And what I learned about the communication is that you need to have sympathy and empathy for people, so you can be able to, communicate anything about your blockers, about the code, about everything. And during the Collab Lab, we learned that a lot. I mean, by we, it's like all of us, because we're all like in the same situation. And also what I love about this program is that I learned how to collaborate. I'm a self-taught for like so long, even until now. So this program's like giving me that experience and to learn how to collaborate with people, like how to work in a team. Because sometimes when you're not sometimes, I think it's for all self-taught, right? Like you make your project by yourself, you have your own thoughts, and then suddenly this particular thing that you think that, oh, I would do this, I would do that, I would do it this way. But then the other said that, no, this would be my approach. And then you have to, like communicate through there. So like, so which one is better to be used, or we can, came up with something else that we both or the whole team can, get along with it. Also, I had the same experience with Andrea on the week one for the Firebase. And that was when I learned like how to collaborate not only in my own team, but I did collaborate throughout the team. So I reached out to all people, all mentors in the whole cohort, and said like, hey, do you have like the same problem as I do? Because like, oh my God, this is new and there's no resources out there, because like Andrea said, it's just 3 days launch when we started the program. So yeah, I learned so much from this experience. Of course, like all of us have challenges, including me, but we learn like how to, work on that challenges. And at the end, we learned so much, and it was a nice experience. So
Thank
I
you
think
so much.
Fatima is not here, Beck. I think it's an internet issue or something. So
Yeah. Thank you all for sharing your experience. I really appreciate what you said. There are some questions that we did have in the chat. I think most of them were canceled. There was a link definitely dropped to how to become a mentor there. I know that we have some folks who are interested. Nick is here. He's going to be a mentor next time around. And it's, I've seen a lot of the really great mentorship that's come through there. So I really love that they do that. let's see, how often are the cohorts? It doesn't say on the site, but I think it looked to be about 3 to 4 times a year. But you can always reach out to them or reach out to Andrew or Stacy and see what their plans are, because maybe they're planning some different things. Let's see, what platform will you use for communication? I think Jennifer talked about that, using Slack and communicating in that way, discouraging email. But if it's necessary, go ahead and use it. So those were the questions that were in the chat. And I just want to say that I think it's fantastic that you all are presenting today, that you're putting yourself out here and sharing your experience, and that you went ahead and did this. I know as a bootcamp grad, one of the hardest things for me was transitioning into the space where I had to communicate with someone else, because I was doing it on my own and I didn't have to communicate code or ask questions. And if there's anything I've learned in the last couple of years, it's that get comfortable with asking questions, because you're going to grow so much better. And even in those like very frustrating moments where Firebase isn't working in the way that you expect it to, those are the moments that I think that you can reflect back on and say, well, that was really, really tough, but I learned a lot in that. So thank you so much for sharing your experience. I want to open it up. If there are questions from folks who are here, you can go ahead and put them. Okay, we've got a new question in the chat, or feel free to use the hand raise function. But Rebecca says, could you explain the application process? Do they give the applicants feedback? Because that would be really helpful, and it kind of appears that they might. So let's start. Ayu, do you have any response to how they do the application process?
Yeah, so the application process is usually Collab Lab will, like mentioned in the Twitter about their opening the application. So there would be like a form that you should fill. And one of the requirement is that you have a project that you've done with React. And why do you want to, participate in this program? And about the feedback itself, I have no idea about people that got rejected, but because I was accepted like right away, so I just got the email that I got accepted, and then when will be the first orientation. So I don't know if Andrea or Jennifer, something about this.
No, yeah, I don't. That's my guess, is that it's the people who don't make it in. I do also know that they take only about 10% of the people who apply. And if you're in the 90%, it doesn't mean that you're not qualified to do it. I'm not sure, having just gone through it, I haven't been on the other side looking at applications, so I don't have a lot of clarity on what they do there. But I think they're looking for, diversity. They're looking for, so yes, they're looking for a certain skill level, but beyond that, they're trying to like fill certain slots. And so after they determine that, yeah, you could succeed in the program, there might be a little chance involved. I don't know, I'm guessing, but so I should probably not say anymore because I really don't know, but I think they do try to be helpful all around. So it wouldn't surprise me if they give feedback when you're not chosen, because some people do get in when they apply the second time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really worth noting. If you don't get in the first time, you might get in the next time. And they are looking to make sure that you're proficient in certain skills as you go forward. But like they said, 10% are taken because the program is just very unique and really great. But I bet that if you asked for feedback, if they don't give it to you, if you're rejected, that you might have the opportunity to get feedback, because their goal overall is to support people and to change the voices of tech by working on diversity and representation. So I think that if they can't give you feedback, then maybe they can point you in the direction of somebody that will be able to give you feedback. Do you all do Zoom calls when you meet with your mentors or with your team?
Yeah, it was on Zoom.
Okay. Do you feel that most of the how do you think that communication breakdown is? Is it mostly on Slack and that communication there, or are you doing a lot in those Zoom sessions?
Does someone else want to
Um,
take this? Because I'm always inclined to talk. Yeah, go ahead, Ayu.
Yeah, so in my experience, because beside me, that I'm still, like a stay-home mom, other than me, they are all still working. So a sync on Zoom, it's not like really that much of a choice. But we do at least like do Zoom call once in a week for 1 hour for us to, like catch up with all the codes and stuffs. And we do much more async communication through Slack and GitHub. And by Slack, I mean, we learn how to be comfortable, to communicate on the thread in the Slack rather than DMs, so that everyone can jump in, like if we have blockers and everyone knows like what we're talking about, what kind of problem do we have, so everyone can help us through, our blockers. So I don't know, Jennifer, do you have your own experience?
All of our experiences were different just because our team experiences are different. On my team, I noticed that we initiated synchronous meetings through Zoom as much as possible. I believe all of us were we were in this generally the same region, except for one person who did have a time zone issue. And with her, we did have to do more asynchronous work, which meant that when we were pushing, it was a little it was a little nerve-wracking when you're working on a branch with someone and you're trying to push and they've already pushed something and it's not working out. But I'd say most of the communication between the entire team was on Slack. But then when you were paired up with someone for an issue over the course of the weekly sprint, it was up to you to really try to figure out how you were going to manage the scheduling. And a couple of people, our schedules were really in sync. We met, I would want to easily in 1 week, we would meet 3 or 4 hours synchronously. And then other people, I don't know that I met with her more than one time during the entire cohort, during the entire project. And we were paired several times. So it really depends on who you're paired with. But again, the mentors stressed that they wanted transparent communication, and they gave us a number of reasons for this. But part of it was that the mentors wanted to be able to keep track of what was going on so that they could make sure that everything was working. That was what I was told.
Yeah, it's great to note that your team really defines what communication will look like. And that's even on most remote teams now. Somebody might say we're remote first, but they require you to be at meetings at very specific times. And other people might do things mostly async. So it's always worth noting, like, is this an async first? Are we going to go with async first, or are we going to try and meet synchronously? Because that helps to avoid, I think, some of the communication battles that teams all over are facing. Andrea, did you want to add to that?
Yeah. So like, as Jennifer was mentioning, we had weekly sprints. So the team of 4 was split into 2 groups. So you're working with one other person. And that's interesting that she said that there was one person that she really didn't meet with much at all synchronously, because on our team, the Slack was where we would reach out to mentors if we needed help or talk about some challenges we were facing or whatever. But for the one person you're paired with, we always paired synchronously. We just had to figure out schedules and make that work. And we would do, pair programming or not, maybe it was sort of a modified version of that where, because sometimes it didn't actually work to be, through VS Code, you can fix it up so that you're both working on the same code at the same time. And when that wouldn't work, whatever, but you can still see what is going on in the code and both people are contributing. So there was a lot of async communication, which I think is an important skill, but then we also did meet up to do the actual coding. Yeah.
That's great to know. So yeah, all of the teams will find their own way to develop what works for them. And I think always being upfront about that is really important when you're working on a team. So if you're jumping into a cohort saying, hey, we want to work together, but because of our time differences, let's do this mostly async. We're going to tackle this in GitHub issues or discussions, or, identifying what tools that you're working with. So that's great to hear different experiences, I think, just to show that they're open to different ways of doing things, and being clear with communication. Now, how many people are in a cohort? Are they all the same?
What do you mean by how many people in the?
So on your team, I guess I should say.
Okay.
Sorry.
There would be four people in a team.
Okay. So
Every
there's
team only has 4 people. Yeah.
Right, but there was like 20 people, so there was, I think, 5 teams in our cohort.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. I think that I had another question and I'm losing it. Oh, I want to say too. So as you're working through communication, I imagine that there were some points that things got tough to communicate with other people. And so how did you find yourself like navigating communication with a new team? And I don't want to call it a high stress environment because you have all this support, but at the same time, you're working with other responsibilities that you're doing and you're balancing new things and new ways of communicating. Do you have any tips for, how you work through some of those maybe tougher communication issues? Jennifer, do you have anything? Start there.
I'm going to have to pass this on to Ayu and Andrea because I just lucked out. I can't describe how much I lucked out on this.
That's awesome. All right. Ayu or Andrea, any tips on navigating challenging communication issues? And I'm not saying throw people under the bus, but I think, we all face that on teams, even if we have great experiences, there can be those times that you have to iron through. Go ahead, Andrea.
Yeah, I would just say, someone said it earlier, you just approach it with empathy. Like, I think it's really helpful, and I think it's really to approach it this way. And I think it is true most of the time, maybe not all the time, that people are not usually going to just like, oh, let me sabotage this. Oh, let me be malicious. So if they're reacting and they're, upset about something, like just try to see what are they upset about? Like, this is blindsiding me, but rather than me reacting like, don't, get like this with me. Okay, what are they seeing that I'm not? Because, I did have an issue with one person. I didn't even know there was an issue. Like, she was upset, and it wasn't about any kind of a tone I used. She thought that I just sort of abandoned her on Slack. And there was a significant language barrier and also a cultural difference. But, someone is from another culture, but you don't know what those cultural norms are. So you don't know anyway. And so we were having a meeting. I was extremely frustrated about some things, not with her, but just, it was the second week where things were going beyond 5 hours, and I really wanted to, but I had a job and just couldn't. It was hard. And so I said, I need to stop. I can't do any more today, like just for mental health, right? And I need to reach out to a mentor, because they've made it more than clear that that's what they're there for, and figure out how we can get this done, or how I know what it was, how I can, like, for future weeks and even for this week, like, what are the priorities here? Are we like, how do I fit this into 5 hours when it's not fitting into 5 hours? And I just was stressed, and I couldn't, and I told her that. I mean, I was actually crying. She knew that I was overwhelmed, and she was very sympathetic to me. And then so yeah. And so then I thought that was clear. I was going to reach out to the mentors and I'd be back in touch with her after. So I met with the mentors like 24 hours later. Well, during those 24 hours, she could not figure out where I was, why I had abandoned her, where, you know, where things stood. Is she supposed to do it by herself? And wow, I thought that she knew that that was the arrangement. I would be back. And so I would just listen to her calmly and realize like she thought I had abandoned her. And I said, you know, if that were to ever happen with somebody, I think you need to stand up for yourself. Like you wouldn't deserve that. Just put it out there like, okay, if I don't hear from you by such and such time, here's my plan. That way they know you gave them some time, and, you know, and I would have been fine if you said, I'm going to need to move forward in this way at this time. And she felt really uncomfortable with that because that's not part of her culture, which I don't know how you overcome that hurdle, honestly. But I just like gave her permission, like, you know, you can say, this is where I'm at and this is my plan moving forward. She was suffering silently. That's not good. So I told her, like, you know, you don't deserve that. So I think just being empathetic for the other person. I don't know if I rambled on too long about that, but.
Oh, I think that's a great example because there can be all kinds of things that you don't recognize that could be barriers in communication, and making those really clear. That's really important. And even setting up the expectation of when you're going to hear from someone, because I have found myself in very similar situations where they say, yes, I'm going to get this done, right? And their get this done is not in the time frame of my get this done, right? So like, I expect this to be done by tomorrow and their expectation might be next week. And so then I'm like, what is going on, right? But if I don't communicate that, okay, this needs done, can you have it done in this time frame? Or if they have an expectation of me, then that's where that misunderstanding comes, and that can create more tension on the team and hurdles that you need to overcome. So I think that that's a really great example of, you know, how to communicate. Start with empathy, set up clear rules for how you're going to communicate, and then learn from that. So then the next time that doesn't happen, and yeah, openly communicate and say, hey, you know, what's going on here? This was my expectation. And then you can work through that thing, but not talking it out makes it really hard to keep going. Ayu, do you have any tips on communication you want to share? You don't have to give a specific example, but if there's something that you learned in navigating those barriers, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah. As for me, because I'm in European African, so we definitely have that, you know, like language barrier and also culture, let's say.
Mhm.
So my tips was, I don't know, I'm more like a people person. So when I find something's like not nice or anything, I approach them personally. And what I did was like, you don't really need to know people like in that kind of personal way, but at least like, hey, what are you doing? Are you working? And then how's your day going? So I can, you know, have that empathy. So if I don't hear from this person like on this hour, oh, probably they're, you know, like working or they have some other activities to do. So I think that would be like my key finally, like into approaching people. But also there are people like Andrea said that just, you know, like don't understand like how to put it out, right? Or in my case, it was defensive, and in that case it was so frustrating because you cannot like, you know, like trying to make the point of what you're saying because like they're so defensive and like, no, I don't know that, no, I don't, you know, like it's not like what you think. And in that case, I reach out to my mentors and say about like, hey, I have this, you know, like I have this problem of communication. Can you like give me some suggestion on what I have to do here? Because I have done ABC and it didn't work. And usually my mentors were really, really supportive, and they like, you know, like giving me like they cheer me up and said like, hey, you learned something from this, right? And I said, yeah, of course I learned something from this, but I also like need to know like how I can, you know, like handle situations like this. And yeah, so they've been very helpful. So I mean, like if you first of all try to reach out to them, you know, like talk one-on-one, and yeah, asking like what is going on between us and like what do we need to do. And if it doesn't work, then anytime reach out to your mentors. They're there for a reason, right? Because everyone in the Collab Lab, they want this experience to be like really good for you. So just reach out to the mentors anytime you need them.
Yeah, I think that's such great tips. I just want to emphasize that, you know, you can reach out to your Collab Lab mentors. If you're not in Collab Lab, then reach out to somebody that you trust in the community, because there have certainly been times where I've needed somebody to read my Slack message before I sent it, just to say like, how is this coming across? Because is this tone too strong? Is it not clear enough? And we all need that sometimes. Go ahead, Andrea, what were you going to say?
Yeah, one thing I don't think we have mentioned is that there's a check-in after, I think they strategically put it after maybe like 3 weeks. So after you had been able to work with each of your other teammates once, and they have, you know, a code of conduct that they take seriously, like Virtual Coffee does, where people need to be treated with respect and so on and so on. And so there's, in our case, it was one of the founders, Stacy, checked in with us, but I'm sure they have other people who do it too. And she just set up one-on-ones with us to just see how things are going, make sure, you know, make sure it was a safe space to let her know if anything was, you know, making us feel threatened or whatever. In my case, everything was fine. But they, you know, they really want everybody to be comfortable and succeed. And that's just another thing that they do that's really nice.
Yeah, that's so great to hear that they prioritize support. We've got some questions in the chat that I want to try and get through. I know we're close to the end of time. I can stay over a little if others can, but if you can't, that's okay. We can get these answered in Slack. So let's see. Ryan had asked about how the issues were created, and Jennifer did answer this in the chat and said that the issues in the tickets up until the end, when you were addressing things like styling, were already created in a GitHub project board, but you had the freedom to create your styling. So that's good to know, because I think that, you know, that could be something that might feel overwhelming. And then the next question, Jennifer, I'll let you answer this if you want to, but did you work on full stack as a team, or did you specialize on different things?
We all worked full stack, but the nice thing was that, again, it simulated a work environment where you got to pick your ticket with your teammates. So you knew who your teammate was going to be. The teammates were assigned, and then you could look at the issues and then make the decision whether you were going to go with the ticket that was really different than the ticket you worked on last sprint, or if you were going to do something that was a little more I guess, in line with what you were doing. And most of my teammates always wanted to do something different. So if they were working on something that was very back-end Firebase, all of a sudden the next ticket they'd want to do React. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. And then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh no, I have to learn more React really quickly. So it was great. You really do learn the full stack.
That's really, really great to hear. And you all did presentations with the other teams, right? At the end. So you get to, you don't get to see everybody else's projects. Or is it open source? Can people view your projects on GitHub? Do you know how your products differed from the other teams?
It was the same. Everybody had the same set of issues and went through the same process. At the end, we did style ours. I mean, everybody, that was like the last 2 weeks. And that was more, you weren't given issues for that. You were given kind of free reign, and you had to self-organize for that part of it.
I like that.
Yeah.
There's emphasizing more of that communication. Somebody else in the chat said they've heard Andrew mention they intentionally create majority women / non-binary teams so participants can experience that. Did you feel it was different in any way being part of women majority teams? That might be hard to answer based on what your other experience with different teams has been. But does anyone want to comment on how they felt impacted by team organization?
Well, this is my first collaboration. So I mean, like, doesn't matter like working with women or with men. I mean, like, it's just how I learned to collaborate. So
Yeah, I did another program that's kind of similar, kind of at a more beginner level even than this one, called Moms Can Code, and that was all moms. And and my team here was I was one of 3 women, and then there was a guy. So it wasn't different from my other experiences, because my other experiences were pretty much with all women. I think you'd have to ask a man that, hey, was that different working with a bunch of women?
Yeah, I think a lot of this largely depends on what your team makeup looks like. Jennifer did answer in the chat that each team demos their project to their mentors and Andrew, who is the founder of Collab Lab. And then the project repos are available in the Collab Lab GitHub. So that's good to know. You can view all of those there. You can check it out if you're interested and see what others have created. And see who else. They also have everybody that they have been part of their cohorts up on the site, which is nice. I saw some other virtual coffee faces in there, and I know Yolanda's here now, and she did Collab Lab. Let's see. Okay, another question. It was mentioned that you learned how to create great pull requests, but did you also review pull requests, or was it only mentors that did the reviews? That's a good question. Were you reviewing each other's pull requests? Yeah, so it wasn't just getting merged in. Andrea, do you want to talk a little bit about what it was like to review a pull request?
Well, we had every week, we either had a retrospective for those who don't know, or a presentation on, just kind of a concept and how it's done. So probably one of the first ones was code review, what to look for, how, what to comment on, how to comment on it. It was an hour long. The presentation was probably a half hour long. So there were a lot of good points in there. I don't remember what they all were, but so we were kind of set up with like, here's how you do a code review. Now go do code reviews.
Yeah,
and then, it had to be, as I said before, it had to be ultimately approved by the mentor before it would get merged in.
that's nice. There's, again, more communication, built-in safety by having the mentors there. Jennifer, you want to talk a little bit about your experience with peer code review?
I actually do, just for 1 minute, because I had never done any kind of peer code review. I actually hadn't ever done code reviews, so I had no idea what to expect. And it was so helpful. And one of the things that I took away from it was every single interview I had after Collab Lab, that was a huge emphasis for me, was I need feedback, because as an early career dev, I need that feedback. So what kind of peer review, who's going to be reviewing, what kind of feedback am I going to be getting? That's how valuable I found it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Ayu, do you have anything to add to that?
yeah, same here. I mean, like, this is the first time I do code review, and to be honest, I still need to learn much more about it. But as long as the code work, I can say that, hey, the code works and good job, everyone. And otherwise, if I know that something can be refactored, then I can, like, comment on that. And it's always, like you said, that it's always nice that after our review, and then the mentor would be like the last review of all, and they can, like, put more suggestions into it.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a skill that I don't often use. And I know that I would love to learn more about that too. Nick also mentioned in the chat that Collab Lab has guest speakers that give talks that are open to the public. So they have those up on their site. And I know a couple of VC people have done them as well. Again, a really great and safe space to give a talk in, and also to go and learn, because they're on Meetup, they're public. So you can go check it out, even if you're not part of Collab Lab. And there was a live mock interview where Dan Abramov was the candidate that they got to watch. I'm sure that was very, very cool. Let's see. All right. So I think that I got all of the questions in the chat, but let me check here, or if there are other questions, go ahead and ask them, or feel free to raise your hand or unmute and ask the question to the group. there's so much. You all did an amazing job and answered so many questions and gave great examples. So I really, really appreciate that. Okay, yeah, I think that I got them all. If I didn't, you can always message anybody here. And again, we have more virtual coffee people who have been part of Collab Lab. So I'm sure, like we said, every team is going to be different. Every experience is different as well. But I think that we can tell that there's a lot of support, and it's nice to have that support when you're navigating something new and potentially challenging and learning with a totally new group of people. So I really appreciate you all being open and vulnerable and sharing your experience. And I think that you all did a great job. So throw up your clap emojis now. They did such a good job. Any last questions or last things you all want to say before we finish for today?
Thanks for having us.
All right, I think that's it. So again, thank you all so much for being here. Check out Collab Lab. If you have more questions, feel free to ping them. I'll put a post up in the VC events channel so you can ask questions there. And thank you again for sharing your experience with us. You all did an absolutely wonderful job.
Thank you, everyone.